Hi, I'm Simon Scott from Acquire and thank you for joining us for our Cisco Meraki webinar. In today's interview, Luke Fode, a sales specialist at Meraki, will be talking to Cameron Watt, the Director of Information Services at Auckland Grammar School. Cisco Meraki is a world leader in cloud-controlled Wi-Fi, routing and security. In these extraordinarily challenging times, primary and secondary schools are facing more acute challenges than ever before. And as more and more schools shift from the face-to-face to hybrid learning models, IT departments are feeling the pressure to fast-track digital transformation and implement future-ready technology solutions. In today's interview, I hope the guys discuss the current challenges and the priorities education providers are facing. Also the agility and flexibility of cloud IT solutions, and in this current environment, the proactive approach that IT departments need to make in order to prioritize investment in digital transformation. Without further ado, introducing Luke Fode and Cameron Watt. I hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Hello everybody, Luke here from Cisco Meraki. So today we're hosting an event alongside the guys and girls from Acquire, as well as our celebrity, should we say, on the call, Cameron Watt. He's going to be giving us a bit of a synopsis from Auckland Grammar School. So as you can tell with Cameron speaking here, the main topic of focus is going to be building the future of cloud networking at K-12 schools. We're going to run through a bit of a top level as to what Meraki is, and then we're going to jump into a bit of Cameron's experiences, both at the school and obviously with everything going on at the moment, how the teachers have had to adapt to the changings in technology. So there's some pretty pictures to start off. There's myself on the left. So I'm Luke, as you can tell by the accent, which still hasn't evaded me, from the UK. I've been at Meraki now for about 3 years and looked after the New Zealand territory. Cameron, if you just want to introduce yourself as well before we go through.
Yeah, so I'm Cameron Watt. I'm the Director of Information Services at Auckland Grammar School. Been in the role for about 6 or 7 years, and over that time I've seen the change in Meraki for the school, along with all the other ins and outs of IT.
Cool, thank you, Cam. All right, so I'll just give you that high-level agenda again. So first of all, who the hell are these Meraki people that are speaking to me today, and what are we all about, I guess, from a product perspective? And then we're going to drill to be a bit more specific. So why schools are using Meraki, not only in New Zealand, but around the globe as well. And then the most important bit of why we're here today is just to actually hear some thoughts from Cameron and what they're up to at Auckland Grammar. And then following that as well, we'll arrange some next steps from the webinar. So another important fact, one of you may be here today as well, is there's 5 Wi-Fi 6 access points up for grabs, and that's the MR46 model. So if you want the latest and greatest technology for jumping on one of our personalized webinars, this could be an access for you guys as well. So let's start a bit about who these Cisco Meraki fellows are, and then we'll jump into making that a bit more specific. So when you're investing in Meraki, you're investing not only in just access points or switches, you're investing in a platform. So the whole concept from Meraki came from a bunch of students, funnily enough, who were from Massachusetts, and they were placing access points on the top of roofs there. The project was called RoofNet. So they found, instead of having to manually configure these access points across the Massachusetts city, they've decided to have a cloud managed platform to do all this control and configuration. So that was right in its infancy. And then we've included switching as well as our MX and firewall appliance into the mix. And the portfolio's expanded even further recently. So we've got cloud managed CCTV cameras, as well as mobile device management software as well. So thankfully on the call today, Cameron's actually had some exposure to each and one of these every products. So we'll be able to give you a bit of a high level as to why they're using them at the school as well. So why do people actually make this investment into Meraki technology? So number one is scalability. So with the cloud, bringing on new devices and sites is very seamless and very quick and intimate. So as opposed to having a network engineer who's specifically skilled up in vendors, it makes it a lot easier for you to, number one, concentrate on stuff for the school, like, for example, enabling kids, and get those networks up and running really quickly through the cloud programmability of it. The next emphasis, I guess, from a Meraki standpoint, is to really emphasize that digital learning for children. So whether that be prioritizing bandwidth to school-related applications. I know a lot of exams, for an example, are actually making that transition to online-based as well. So it's really important they're getting the connectivity. But also within the learning environment as well, making sure that that Wi-Fi connectivity is always premium, because there's lots of new devices coming onto the network, both from a BYOD sense, as well as existing school-provided devices as well. And also some analytical decisions as well. So we want to actually make sure our kids are safe, which brings on to that security side of things. So whilst they're on the school premise, they're going to be visiting school-related traffic and applications, and also we can actually see and track their behavior whilst they're at school. So as mentioned before with the BYOD devices, nowadays most students have got mobile phones. I know back in the heyday when I was a pupil, I wasn't so blessed to have one of the iPhones that the kids are rocking now, but most kids have got like an iPhone, a laptop, as well as some other devices as well. So it's really important that we're keeping all of these devices secure in the network, as we mentioned there, without having to have infinite IT resource to try and manage all these things, which is where the cloud managed platform really helps out. So Meraki for education specific. So education is actually our biggest vertical globally. And the reason why a lot of schools get a lot of joy out of the Meraki technology is, number one, the high density side of things. So as mentioned before, if you're so lucky, you'll be able to get one of our free Wi-Fi 6 access points. And this just means with all of these new devices on the network, the kids are going to be able to get that optimal connection. And again, as we highlighted there, with all these new devices, they need to be safe and secure. And on top of this, Cameron's actually got a use case where he's installed mobile device management, specifically to his Apple devices, but also some of his Lenovo devices on the network as well. So here's, again, another little snapshot of all the products which fit under the bell here. So not only off today's demo are you able to just get the access point, but also we're able to ship free trials of any of these products as well. So get in touch with your acquire representative, and then I'll be able to help them out with distributing this product, or even getting a demo as to what they can do as well. So probably the most important bit prior to us getting into there is just to hear from Cameron from Auckland Grammar. So we'll just give you a bit of a story about the college first, and then we'll kind of break into a bit of a Q&A session. So Auckland Grammar, years 9 to 13 in Auckland. It's a huge school supporting over 2,500 students and over 250 staff, that's both permanent and temporary. They've got a fairly sizable IT team comparative to other schools I've dealt with. There's 9 people helping out on and off in there. And it's a huge university-style campus given the amount of students, and there's a load of devices, as we mentioned before. So some of the challenges prior to, I guess, the Meraki coming on board, they had some bandwidth issues, which is particularly limiting to some of their classroom environments. So your media and music, etc. of the world who are using these large file types. There's also an array of different vendors due to the devices being provided from the previous SNUC program. So it was all a bit of a consolidation project for Cameron to try and actually get a bit more control as to what was going on in the school. So that's enough of me talking. It's probably time to flick over to Cameron now and actually just get some of his thoughts, I guess, from a little bit of a Q&A. So, Cameron, I guess let's start from a top level, I guess, from a school's perspective. So, given everything that's going on at the moment, to say it was a challenging time is probably a bit of an understatement. How have the children and the teachers actually coped with this transition to what was going on, working from home, etc., and going a lot more digital?
Yeah, so we have had a 5-year plan for rolling out not only the network infrastructure, but also the digital teaching and learning systems. So about 3.5 years ago, we purchased a learning management system, and over that time we've slowly been building up the resources in that. Not for the current use, but it was to complement and enhance the in-classroom teaching for the students. But in retrospect, then the work we've done on that has now made it a lot easier to transition to a full online learning environment for our students in these lockdown times.
Yeah, that was pretty good in hindsight. You had all that in place. I know a lot of not even just schools, but businesses in general were kind of scrambling to actually provide connectivity to some of their users. So, yeah, hats off to you for coming out the other side of that one. The next topic I wanted to go into with you, Cameron, was just, I guess, what you inherited prior to, I guess, making that investment in the Meraki technology. So you had some SNUT provided devices, correct? And what did the network kind of look like beforehand?
Yeah, so even before SNUP, we had what would I call an aging network, which was made up primarily of Cisco 2950s, some 2960s, and Catalyst 4500 chassis switches for aggregation. The wired network was limited to 100 base T, which for areas like art, music, technology was becoming a real bottleneck for and hindrance for student work.
Yep.
The backbone was a mixture of some 10 gig, where we'd managed to link the 4500s together, but most of the building links were only 1 gig or aggregated 1 or 2 gig links. So it wasn't really going to meet the demand long term. So we made a investment into upgrading the entire infrastructure over a few years. We also increased the use of virtualization in the server system, and the interconnects for that from the servers into the network was run at 10 gig, which wasn't possible under the Cisco environment. Moving into the wireless, even before SNUP, we had old Cisco access points, which were sparsely laid out around the school, so there was plenty of dead spots, and the throughput was quite low. The complexity required to manage all this cobbled together technology meant we had to spend quite a lot on external IT network specialists to maintain it and to add or change anything that we wanted to do. It wasn't something that the in-house staff was capable of doing. IT budgets in schools are quite constrained, so expending resources on hiring a network engineer was not really something that we could afford to do. Also, we had a site-to-site VPN, and that was based on the old IPsec technology. Okay. And was not able to use any of the newer technologies like SD-WAN or utilize aggregated connections. So that was another area we wanted to expand on with the replacement. Moving into the SNUP program, which was the wireless, first iteration of our wireless replacement, we were encouraged or told to use HeroPay by the Ministry of Education. So it didn't really ever work the way it was designed to work. We had a lot of problems with it. We have clients dropping out, moving from one room to the other, literally next door to each other, because the client roaming just didn't work. We got AeroHost specialists in, and we did a bit of tweaking, but it still never really worked properly. So we persevered for that for 2.5, 3 years. And once the licensing starting to come to the end, we made the decision to move away from the ministry SNUP program and design and build our own wireless system using Meraki gear.
Well, there you go. It seems like you've gone on a bit of a journey there with your virtualization piece, and then making a hash out of some of these SNUP provided devices sounds pretty challenging, especially for kids having more devices on board as well. So that connectivity must have been a bit of a
Yeah, I
problem.
mean, we had to build a system that was going to handle BYOD of 2,500 students if we would go down that path, plus all the other add-ons. I mean, BYOD isn't just one device; it usually means two for a student. So
there you go. I think that's the way the world's going. The more and more devices as we go on. So that was a good little synopsis, I guess, on your journey through from SNUP to even before SNUP, etc., to having the technology you've got now. So let's talk about the today, if we can, a bit more. So talking about enhancing the student performance and experience when they're in classroom environments, how has Meraki really helped, I guess, enable the students, learn and truly be a bit more engaged maybe in the classroom?
yeah, so I mean, the Meraki system is dramatically improved the wireless coverage, the performance and reliability, which allows teachers to leverage resources such as streaming video during class without any interruption. The high performance wireless also allows use of class sets of devices such as Chromebooks with internet-based resourcing. Improvements in the wired network performance has allowed the departments with heavy requirements such as art, technology, and music to move large quantities and size of files across the network. We only have 40-minute periods here, so we couldn't afford to wait 5-10 minutes for a file to copy across the network. So the Meraki stack with getting to the desktop and its high-speed wireless has allowed us to make good use of that time.
Yeah, well, I can certainly concur with that. I think I was mentioned to you on a call the other day. Back our internet connectivity back in early the noughties wasn't the best at the best of times. So stuff like music and stuff, waiting around for buffering, etc., when downloading those files, when you've only got a really small slot window, it's really impactful, especially to actually provide something to the students. So I guess we've heard at a top level as to some of the reasons why you've invested in the technology. I just thought it'd be quite nice actually to actually give everyone a bit of a snapshot as to what your dashboard looks like, Cameron, in terms of where the products fit together. So if you mind sharing your Auckland Grammar dashboard if possible, and then we'll kind of run through some of the features there.
Yeah, sure. So this is our dashboard. We have 4 networks, the main campus, our venture lodge, which is in Awakuni, and a couple of other remote sites that we linked into the main school system. So if we take a look at one of the best features, I think, is looking at the clients connected to the entire Meraki network at the school. So as we can see, there's 3,597 client devices that the Meraki system has seen the last day. And we're going to I'm going to focus on one device and just show you some aspects of what the Meraki system can do. So this is one of our staff laptops.
Yeah, go for it, Cameron. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So we can see from here basically a snapshot of this client and how it's interacting with the network. So we can see it's been associated since currently since 1 p.m. What SSID it's been connected to, the access point it's been connected to, this literally single strength, what device type it is, and what capabilities it has. So moving down, we can see the current client connection. So I can see that the laptop is connected to the SSID AGNet through to the access point, which is a MR42 access point. Moving forward to the connection from the access point to the switch. So from this, it gives me little ticks to show that it's all working properly. There's no warnings or anything coming through from the flow. So moving down here, we can see what the wireless health was of this client. So we can see that according to this, the most common failure is authentication. Now, in my experience, this is usually in something like this, is just where the staff members walk past access point moving to something and it's quickly jumped, so it hasn't actually authenticated to the access point and then moved on. As you can see, it moved past the library room to where he's going in music, so it's probably just jumped as it's gone past there. So down here we can see the usage for the last day. So you can see from yesterday he was doing some work and then went home, and then you can see he came in quite early this morning and he's been doing work right through there. To the right here you can see the kind of traffic that he has been doing. So you can see miscellaneous web, just general web traffic. He's been showing some YouTube videos to his class. Is the main parts of what he's been doing. Down the bottom here, there's a part that I really like, is the policy part. We've got some options here where if I wanted to, for whatever reason, block him from accessing the network and the device policy, I can actually just click on blocked, and any pages he tries to go to use the network will give a response saying that your access is blocked. So say you have a issue where you think a machine has been stolen, you can quickly jump on here, block it, so anyone who's got the machine can't access anything in the network. So I find that quite useful. You can also apply different group policies, which I'll get to shortly, which is different types of restrictions.
So as you were mentioning, Cameron, just to, I guess, go from a top level, for the school in itself, what kind of policies have you got set up? Is it just a mixed match of maybe staff having a bit more freedom on the network as opposed to specific strands of students having certain policies, I guess?
Yeah, so we've got different policies set for the different wireless networks in the school. So I can quickly show you that. So in the group policies, you can see that the different wireless VLANs have different restrictions put on them. So if we say, look at the guest one, so this is our guest wireless network. So what we're doing here is we're using custom bandwidth limits, so any device can't get more than 10 meg. This is to discourage them from using anything like large file downloads, that sort of thing. And guest access is only there for temporary use, so I wouldn't want them to be utilizing it for anything other than that. Then we've got a custom firewall policy. So what this is basically doing is saying what access to the internal network the clients on this SSID have. So we've got all the allows, then we've got a deny of the general network, and then we've got the allows, I allow them out to the internet. So mostly just 80 and 443. Then we've got iTicket, which is a ticketing system, and that's specifically in there for our theatre. When people bring their laptops in to use the iTicket system, they can connect to guest and still utilize that system without having to compromise our corporate network. Also got Umbrella connections here. So Umbrella is another product by Cisco, which is DNS filtering. So basically what it does is any web requests get funneled through the system, and it looks at the DNS request and makes a decision based on the categories of allowed as to whether they're allowed to access that site or not. So we're obligated to provide what's called a safe learning environment. So regardless of whether it's a student, a staff member, or a guest on campus, we have to provide a safe environment for them to surf the internet. So I block out certain categories of websites that we feel is inappropriate for use on a school site. So that way I can be assured that it's not actually compromising our systems in that way. So I think that's all in that group policy. So as you can see, there's the different ones have different rules. So this one, which is GrammarNet TIBS, is our student orders. So you can see they've got slightly different rules applied. So they have a few more access to things like online gaming and things like that, because being stuck in the hostel for over the weekend with no access to that sort of thing is pretty harsh for them. So we've allowed them to do that for up in the hostel. Also got different rules for different other devices, like our Apple devices or our Chrome devices. And that's mainly around what websites we allow. So things like Chrome linking into the G Suite system, some other things like that. So I think that's all that is probably in there. So if we move back to the client we had. So what I'll do is I'll show you how I can diagnose an issue for in the wireless system. So if looking at the client, I can look straight at the event log. So what this will tell me is on the client, all the connections it's made through the network. So as you can see, these are all the different access points this teacher has utilized today. As you can see, he's moved around quite a bit, even within the music department. And then you can see over here all the radius responses, all that sort of information gives you a overview of whether there's an issue with the radius authentication, anything like that.
Sorry to interrupt, Cameron. So beforehand, with maybe the SNUP or even the technology you had before, what would be the process if you had a wireless issue raised by a staff member? Then would just be a case of raising a ticket and then actually having to go into these devices through CLI or something beforehand, or?
Yeah, so the old Cisco one was we didn't really have any sort of visibility over it. The Arrow Hive had very basic logging, but most of the time we ended up having to trawl through the radius logs to see whether it was an issue in that. We didn't have any of this sort of capability in the Arrow Hive system. So this has made it a lot easier for my staff to be able to quickly have a look at an issue without having to have CLI experience, that sort of thing.
I'm with you.
So we've determined that there's nothing wrong with the client. So then we can look at the access point. So if we just click on the access point here. This will bring up the access point that he's currently connected to. So from this we can see where in the school it is. We've placed all access points onto location maps, and we can also get things like heat maps, radio frequency maps as well out of it. So we can also see how many current clients are connected to this access point. So we can see from this that there's 4 students connected and 2 staff connected to it. So, and we can see from here what channel they're using. So they're all using channel 44. They've all got a channel width of 20. We can see how much data they're going through on this access point. what their IP address and VLANs are, and the signal strength that's relative to each client connection. So down here, we can see the radius and VLAN request status. So if we hover over that, it gives a definition of what each of the statuses means. So we can see from here that the radius connections are fine. So from here, we can see that a DNS request on one VLAN failed. Most of these with small numbers means that the client's probably disconnected while it's been in the process of authenticating or associating with this access point. So from down here, we can see the connectivity of the access point. So we can see that it's been had a good steady connection to the network for the last day. You can change the time period here if you wanted to look at it over a longer time frame. So I can see here the most problematic SSID is AGNet. Now, currently AGNet is using MAC-based authentication, but we are in the process of moving that to IPSK. So what this will probably mean is that as a client moves past this access point, it's tried to auto-connect to AGNet, but it has failed in the authentication component because of the just moving past an open SSID. So you can see from here the authentication is 31% failed. So also here you can see the latency. So there is very little latency in this access point. So to me, this access point's working the normal parameters. Down at the bottom, you can see how many clients have actually used this access point over the last day. So this is quite useful if you're trying to track down a client as to where it's been moving from and to, and you can kind of get an idea of how many connections it's got over a day. So if you see 400, then perhaps there is a utilization issue. So we've determined that the access point is working correctly. Down the side here, you can see what SSIDs it is being, what is broadcasting. You can see this one here means that it's on a time frame. So what we do is we disable the student SSID outside of hours, so it discourages anyone from sitting outside trying to connect and use the school Wi-Fi. It's also handy in the hostels, making sure they go to bed and they don't use it after lights out. So here you can see the radio settings. So this gives us an overview of the radio settings for this access point, and you can assign profiles to an access point or a group of access points. So we have a quickly look at this.
Whilst you're getting that up, Cameron, what would be a use case of when you would change some of these radio features? Is it when it's in a really high density environment, or is there like any specific use cases you've got at the school where you configure it?
Yeah, so here in IT, where IT is situated is on the ground floor of a building. It's got it's concrete roof for us, and above that is technology. So what we had as a problem is wireless access in IT was poor, and what we worked out is when we were diagnosing it is the access points in the two IT labs are further away from my office than what the access point directly above is. However, the one above has got to go through concrete. So therefore I was getting poor performance because of that. So what we did is we adjusted the profile for those access points to not transmit as fast, so therefore be more localized. So that encouraged the clients to connect to the access points in IT where they had better range and so therefore more transmit power. So in a RF profile, you've got different selections you can do. So we use 2.4 and 5G. We haven't enabled band steering in this particular profile, but in some of the other ones we do. That's only because this is my test profile I've been using, so it's just testing a certain feature I was looking at. So client balancing is quite a useful feature in that it will steer the client to the best available access point during association. So if you've got one access point that's got close to 50 clients or so, it will encourage that client to jump to another one to on associations, which is less utilized. So here you're just setting all the channel, the radio frequency information, the channel width for 5G, all that sort of fun stuff. So going back to the, sorry.
So yeah, I like what you've done there. So to summarize, I guess what you're doing here is you're really profiling that wireless just so the kids are going to get that optimal connectivity in classrooms. And I guess in those larger rooms, etc., as well, it's really important that you don't have every single student connected to that one access point. Otherwise, yeah, it's probably going to fall over to an extent. So that having that natural transition between them, you can really see the benefit, I guess, from that side of things. You spoke about your troubleshooting path as well before around having different vendors prior to Meraki and having that pathway being a bit jumbled, I guess. So once you've then profiled what's going on the access point, what would your next point of call be for the troubleshooting perspective, say if the access point was performing well?
Yeah, so what I'll show you is the access point is working well. Down the right hand side here, you can see what switch it's connected to and even what port on the switch it's connected to. So this is not something you would get out of a mixed vendor environment where you can just jump from one to the other within the same system. So if we click on 6, it will bring up the switch and the port that the access point was connected to. So from this you can see the port traffic for the last day or for the last month. So you can see here that was pretty flat through August, so that's when we hit our last lockdown, and then it's ramped up again since then. So the configuration of the port, I can see that it's a trunk port using native VLAN 20 and allowing those VLANs through. What we've done here is we've tagged all the ports that provide an access point. So quite recently I wanted to expand the number of VLANs that were being used by the access points. So I could bring up all the ports that were tagged with this and then make a global change on all of them to expand the allowed VLANs without having to Cisco go through command line and change it all and that sort of thing. So, I mean, something that used to take me maybe half a day to go through all the switches in the school, I can now do in 5 minutes, which is a real time saver, so I can get on and do other things.
Goodbye, stay alive.
So from here you can see what usage the switch port is put through, and you can get the CDP, LLDP information. So I can see it's a Meraki MR42 access point, M2. So down here you can see what clients are connected to the actual switch port. So what this shows you is it actually shows you the actual access point, and then it will show you all those client connections that are actually connected to that access point. So you can actually see you got visibility across not just from the access point, but from the switch port as well as to what's connected on a switch, which I find really useful for when I'm tracking down a client as to where it might actually be or if it's jumping around, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I guess from that, to summarize them, we've started off with segregating VLANs based on specific categories or groups within the school, and you've assigned specific traffic shape rules to them. You've then gone down through this troubleshooting side as well. So you've gone from that student point of view, seeing where they're transitioning between access points throughout the school, and now you've gone up to that switching layer and also be able to diagnose there. So as you were mentioning, your time to troubleshoot has gone quite significantly down just due to having everything in one place, and for want of a better expression, one throat to choke, I guess, from a vendor's perspective, should something go wrong. What I'd also be curious to find out, Cameron, as well, is a bit of how you actually set up the network from start to finish. Now you've isolated the problems, you've troubleshooted effectively. How would you then go in and actually set up the Meraki network from the minute you press go, say on some access points as or an MX as an example?
Yeah, so a good thing about Meraki is that you don't actually have to have the physical device powered up or even on the premise before you configure it. So when any product is shipped from Meraki, I'll get an email with the serial numbers and the shipping information as to what's being shipped. So what I can do is I can go into the inventory. And I can look up and I can add a device. I've got one here. So I just paste the serial number of the device in here. So it's going to tell me it's a MX64, which is a little firewall. And then if I go through the wizard, I can select it and then move it into a network I want to move it into. So I'm going to move it into this network here. So what that's done is that's now configured the network of 8 Clive Road with that appliance. So therefore I can go in here and I can configure, even though it's never been connected to the Meraki cloud, I can still go in and set its uplinks. I can set its information, and I can pre-configure it. So when the device does actually arrive, I can just go and plug it in, and once it's got access to the internet, it will download its configuration and just start working. So I don't even have to go and do this. I can send one of my technicians to go and do this once it arrives. And so it's very simple for us to quickly deploy new devices into the network. So what I might show you here, just under our main network, I'll show you the topology of the network. So you can see from this is the entire network topology from the core right through to the access points and all the different switches. So you can hover over anything and it will give you information about the device. So as you can see here, this is a access point. The 52s are a 2-port port channel access point to get the throughput. So I can see it from this here. So these are the different switches. And so, I mean, it gives me a really good overview of the entire topology or stacks. So what you can do is you can stack certain Meraki switches into one virtual switch, and you can control all aspects of it from the switch interface. So as you can see, it's quite
Looks like a bit of a beast of a network you got there, Cameron.
yeah, it is quite a big thing. So you can see there's 287 devices online. So if one of these devices does go offline, I will get an email from the dashboard saying that what device has gone offline, what time it went offline. So I can then go through and see what happened. Say if there's a power outage in a block, then I'll get a notification for all the devices that went offline in that block. And also when they come back online, when the power's restored, I would get an email saying that these devices have come back online.
That's a good point to highlight, I guess, Cameron. So from an IT's perspective, you can become a bit more proactive in your approach to what's going on, as opposed to firefighting your way through your ticketing system being lodged left, right, and centre. You're going to have that granular visibility prior to those tickets being raised. So yeah, that's a good point you raised there. So you've concentrated on the network quite a lot here. So we've went through this access point, we went in the switch, and you've also just fired through that new MX, which you just set up within a few minutes, which is pretty cool, and assigned a VPN to it by the looks of it. I also noticed at the school that you've obviously got some mobile device management software, and also you've got some cameras at one of your cool locations, which I'm pretty jealous that I still haven't had an invite to get over there for. So would you mind showing us just how you're using those two products as well?
Yeah, sure. So System Manager is our MDM. We use this for control of our Apple products. So this allows us to send policies and applications through to any of our Apple devices. So we utilize Apple DEP, which is an enrollment program on purchase. So when we purchase an Apple device, we get the supplier to forward the details through to the Apple DE program. And what will happen is it will get auto-provisioned into this system. So this automatically syncs with Apple and will pull down all the devices from our Apple DEP account. So what I can do is, before the device has even has arrived, I can click on one and I can assign a set of settings for it. So say I was to assign this. This will is basically enabling what out-of-the-box experience happens with the device. So what it will do is it will turn it into a supervised device, which means that we've got overall control of it. So we can lock people out from resetting them, removing settings, that sort of thing. We also told it to skip all these out-of-box setup features because we will be pushing a profile to it that sets most of these for it. So I click assign for that. It will assign that profile. So when that device is deboxed and connected to Wi-Fi for the first time, it will drag down a remote administration profile that has all those settings in it. So what we then do is we can actually look at one of these devices. So what this view tells us in the MDM is it gives us a GPS location of where it is. The big circle here is what's called our geofence. So what we've geofenced all our iPads. So if they leave the geofence, it will lock the device, and it'll also send me an email saying it has left the perimeter. Again, if it comes back into the perimeter, then I'll get an email saying it's re-entered the perimeter. So you can get a lot of information from this screen. You can see that even the charge of the iPad, what version of the OS it's using, whether it's been supervised or not with DEP enrolled, how much storage has been utilized in the iPad, its last LAN IP or its current LAN IP, what the public IP it's being accessed from. So that's our main school IP address. Online status, so it checks in periodically and then goes when it's got, this one's obviously gone to sleep. Yeah, so down here you've got other options. So you can clear it with a managed device. You can clear a passcode if someone's put passcode onto it. You can lock the device. So if you don't want anyone to use the device, you can click lock device, and it will just display the lock screen on the device. So you've got different options. You can send a message push notification to it. You can reboot or shut down. You can activate a single app mode quickly on a device. This will give you a set of, this is the restrictions I was talking about, what I had set on this device based on the profile, which is French, which is just the name of where this iPad's used. So down here you can see that always we end up with a Meraki management profile in it, and then it'll have the restriction profile, so it says it's managed and up to date. Also give you a list of all the applications that are on it. So we use the volume purchasing program from Apple for this. So we'll go onto that and we'll purchase apps, and then we tag an app with where we want it to go. So all those iPads that had French as a tag, any app in here that says French will get automatically pushed to the iPad. And the good thing is, because it uses the VPP program, it bypasses the App Store on the device, so there's no prompts for passwords or anything like that. It just silently rolls out the new app. So if French wanted a new application, we can do that within 10 minutes just by pushing that, and then they will get pushed out to the device ready to use. It's an MDM. We got.
I think that's a cool use case there. I guess when you've got a new subject, as you mentioned, just trying to get that specific application relative to the topic, instead of having to boot up every single one of those iPads, jumping in, going into the App Store, pressing the app download. It's just a case of pushing that volume button. So yeah, on the MDM side, I'm glad that's helped out the school. So the final component I just wanted you to run through, Cameron, is I'm going to be biased here. It's 100% my favorite product to demo, which is why I want you to show the guys, and also the location's pretty cool as well. So would you mind just showing us some of the couple of cameras you've got on site as well?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of Meraki cameras. They're actually down at our lodge, which is in Awakuni, which is in the central North Island, about 350 k's away from here. So our network in the Venture Lodge, we have Meraki's access points, switch, and firewall. Firewall has a site-to-site VPN back to the main school, but we also have some cameras down there. So we've got two cameras. One of them looks out the front of the main building into the car park. So we can see at the moment that there's a car going past, a truck going past. Looks like it's rained there relatively recently and doesn't look like it's very sunny. Our other camera is in a corridor that is looking out towards where the spa pool is, through that to the door on the right, and it's covering an area that we've had. We want to monitor who goes to the spa pool, because students shouldn't be. It's only for staff and external hirers, but also an area where it isn't well able to be supervised. It's outside of the main dormitory area, so we put a camera in there to try and monitor traffic and what goes on down there. So the good thing about the Meraki cameras is they have internal storage, and it periodically gets uploaded to the cloud. So the DSL, the connection at the Venture Lodge is only a pair of ADSL connections, not even VDSL. And the Meraki firewall is actually bonded those two together to give us more download to the network in the lodge. So also what we've got here is you can have a video wall of all your cameras. And down here you've got the search of traffic and that sort of thing. So you can go back and review, take screenshots, etc. of oh, look, it's sunny now. So you can do motion searches as well. But the best thing for us is that it doesn't utilize a lot of bandwidth during normal the day. It's uploaded at night.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving us a little walk around the school there, Cameron, virtually, for want of a better expression. And it sounds like, yeah, that you've been able to consolidate a lot of that IT infrastructure into one place to make it a lot easier for you to, I guess, one, to configure, two, to manage, and then three, to just be a bit more proactive in your approach to IT. So thank you very much, Cameron, for sharing. Just to wrap up, we'll kind of give us some call to actions behind today's demonstration, and then from there, it'll be a case of just contacting your Acquire business representative. So, next steps. Number one is we can actually give you a personalized dashboard demo as well. So Cameron's is pretty extensive, so it's probably one of the cooler dashboards that you can actually go through and demonstration on, because he's got pretty much the multitude of Meraki products and also wide Cisco products as well. But if you want a more specific webinar about a specific feature set, etc., we can book on a one-on-one session with your Acquire business manager, myself, and also you guys at the school as well. And then here at Meraki, I'm a sales guy, so naturally don't believe everything that salespeople tell you. So what we like our customers to do is actually plug in the kit and try it out for yourself. And then from there, if you like it, then you'd obviously go ahead and make that purchase. But if not, we'll send a shipping label and then you can just ship it straight back to us for free. And also as well, with the help of Acquire, what we can do is also book some virtual site surveys as well. So yeah, if there's any kind of design, I guess, on that Wi-Fi front, feel free to reach out. But I guess that's all we had time for today. But I just want to, again, thank you, Cameron, for jumping on today and giving us a bit of a synopsis as to what's going on at Auckland. And thank you for the team at Acquire for arranging. And yeah, any further questions, my email address will be presented there, as well as your business contacts from Acquire. So thank you very much, everyone.